right, Pete, to start with, then we're going to talk about Everton and 777 Partners Takeover. Can you give us an update, please, on that and what the current situation is at Goodison Park?
Yeah, as we mentioned before on the pod, it's just crisis after crisis, it seems, with this potential Everton takeover with 777 Partners. Obviously, more red flags have emerged this week with the news that an airline owned by 777 Partners, Bonza Airlines, which I've never heard of him, I'll be honest, have gone into administration. So that's not a good sign, really, when you've got 777 Partners trying to complete this takeover of Everton. But yeah, it's just not the best news for Everton, really. That this takeover deal, I think, has dragged on now 7 months. It's been ongoing for now since they agreed that deal with Farhid Mashiri to buy his 94.1% of the club. There's obviously something wrong, otherwise the Premier League surely would have approved the fit and proper persons test, I think, for this takeover to happen, but that hasn't happened. And obviously they've got a 200 million outstanding loan with MSP Capital as well to be repaid, and they obviously asked for an extension for that to be repaid last month as well. So yeah, it's not looking too good in this one. I've previously said I don't see this takeover happening. I think it's just dragged on too long. And we mentioned last week that they were going to give 777 Partners until the end of the month to try and get this deal over the line. That deadline's obviously passed. My understanding was that there was somebody else in the background ready to step in to secure the takeover of Everton. But the real concern, if you're involved with Everton right now, is the finances. If some of these loans need to be repaid, it could lead to major problems further down the line with the club as well. And the other big issue for them as well, that they need this money to finalise the stadium that they're due to move into after next season. So that'll be another concern for Everton. Obviously, there's been issues on the pitch with the points deductions and the PSR and FFP. And obviously, Sean Dyche has done amazingly well to secure Premier League survival. But off the pitch, it just seems Everton just turn into more and more uncertainty of what's going on off the pitch, and that needs to be sorted sooner rather than later.
Pete, in terms of a time frame, please, what are we now expecting for 777 Partners or any potential takeovers? Is it likely to happen in May? Could it be June? And what does this then mean for their transfer plans going into the summer?
There is no timeline because, as I said, it just keeps dragging on. They were hoping to have the takeover done by, I think, the second week in April. Obviously, that got delayed. They pushed it back. Asked for that extension on the loan that they had as well. So yeah, obviously Everton would hope for it to be done in May, but again, I don't see that happening. I think it's just going to drag on, and I think for Everton's sake, they probably have to move on from this and try and seek new investment from elsewhere because it's really needed on the pitch. Because I think obviously if they don't get new investment coming in, the vultures will be out circling around those Everton players, and coming up to June 30th when those accounts have to be filed, clubs will be ready to pounce and possibly try and sign some of their star players on the cheap, the likes of Jared Branthwaite. Obviously Jordan Pickford's been talked about as well, and I'm sure there'll be interest in other players like Onana, Calvert-Lewin as well. So yeah, real uncertain times for Everton, and all the good work that Sean Dyche has done on the pitch this season could be undone off the pitch.
Pete, just to follow up that, you mentioned in there about the points deduction appeal update. Do you have any news for that, please, and what that might look like for the club for the remaining few weeks of the season?
Yeah, no further update on that. The Premier League have said it will be decided before the end of the season, which is good news, I suppose. The good thing for Everton is it's not going to affect them now. They've secured Premier League safety, so obviously if they don't get any points back, it's not going to affect their tally in the table, and they've done more than enough to stay up. But yeah, Forest still waiting for their outcome on their appeal as well, and Everton waiting on theirs as well. Forest's appeal will come first, and then we'll see what happens there, and then that might give us a bit of a guideline to what might happen with Everton's. But yeah, no real further update on those appeals and any points coming back to Everton.
Paul, in terms of the squad, what do you think it has now on any bearing on the league? Obviously, we know they've stayed up, that they've secured survival. Will the players or manager be fussed at all now, actually, that this is still going on? Or is actually, can they put a lid on that now?
From a player's point of view, you can switch off. I mean, job done. They've done their part of the bargain. I mean, they've had 8 points taken off them and they've stayed in the Premier League, more than safely. It's been an incredible job what Sean Dyche has done there. I know we spoke about it before, but he's potentially up there for manager of the year with what he's done, with what he's had to deal with off the field. So I'm speaking in the press this week. Yes, he spoke to the group, he spoke to the owners, but he's tried to distance himself from that and what he's done with the dressing room and what he's done with those players. after the initial first 10-point deduction, the run they went on was incredible. But then they had that 15 games without a win, and everybody thought the writing was on the wall for him. All of a sudden, he galvanised them again, and he's got the points back. I mean, you look to be safe at this point of the season. The players deserve an opportunity to switch off after what they've had hanging over them all season. There's so much uncertainty going on at that club. He spoke openly and honestly in his press conference. What's your budget next year? What's happening? He said, well, we're working to about 3 budgets. You know, at one point they'd have been working to a Championship budget, then a Premier League budget, then one where they'll have to sell players, one where they have to cut the cloth accordingly. He genuinely, like we talk about most weeks on here, about the financial situation behind the scenes at the club, he won't know what he's got to deal with in the summer. And until the takeover happens and until loans are paid back and until things are made clearer behind the scenes, he's done all he can. There's no more that he can do at that football club. He's been fighting fires left, right and centre, from the boardroom to the owners, to the takeover, to the points deductions, everything else. But he's managed to keep that dressing room door closed and concentrate on the football. He's done an absolutely incredible job, and they deserve the opportunity now to switch off. Because listen, we don't know. He doesn't know. Half of that dressing room might not be there. He might have to sell half of it. He might be able to keep all of it. The takeover looks very, very unlikely that it's going to happen the longer it goes, yet they keep willingly loaning Everton money and putting them in more and more trouble. The worrying thing for Everton is if this takeover doesn't go through, and then they owe all this money on loans, then you're going to have to take on a new investor, a new buyer, seek new investment, who's willing to take on that amount of debt as well as get the club funded in the Premier League. It's whoever, if it isn't 777, somebody's going to be saddled with a huge debt to start with.
Pete, what does that then mean for Everton? Do you think that someone is likely...
Sorry, lads, I thought I turned it on silent.
doesn't matter.
Is it Dicey? Is it Sean Dicey?
And Pete, on that note then, please, what does that mean for a new investor? And actually, are we confident that there will be one secured fairly soon? What's that timeline looking like? Given that we know that Sir Jim Ratcliffe came in with that minority share in Manchester United, that took 3 months. Are we expecting that same sort of timeline for Everton going into the summer?
Yeah, I think it'll be a similar timeline, even potentially longer, because of all the issues that's going on with Everton. As if 7 Partners don't take over, that £200 million loan needs to be repaid. Whoever does come in and want to take on, saddle that debt that they're going to have to sort out before they can secure the takeover as well. I think Everton, they're optimistic that they have got interested parties behind the scenes ready to come in and maybe plan their own takeover bid if this 771 does fall through, which is looking more and more likely with every passing day. So I think for Everton, they do feel that there is interested parties out there who will come to the rescue. And as I said earlier, I think it's vital for Everton right now. They need to know what they can plan ahead for the summer, how they're going to balance the books. And the other one is the stadium. That's a massive one that needs to be finished and completed, because that's going to be huge for Everton going forward in the future. It's going to boost revenues and everything else. But if there's delays in money being repaid, who's to know if the stadium's going to get completed? And that would be a major issue for the club if there's issues with having to pay the builders who are undertaking that work at Bramley Moor Dock as well. And such an exciting project for Everton. They don't want to see that fall flat, because again, I think they've got major issues off the pitch, a lot of uncertainty with players potentially having to be sold as well. And I think the stadium as well, on top of that, would be a major headache for all the hierarchy at Everton right now as well. But as I said, it's just so much uncertainty around Everton. You can't predict what's going to happen right now. And that's the whole confusion around this takeover.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.